Hey guys and gals, welcome back to BK Motors of Mayhem. This is part 4 of this whole CB debacle, if you'll call it, okay? So, as you might see, I got gaskets. So that is exciting. And I got a pack of NOS Honda CB piston rings. The box is way older than me. But I got a set of rings for it. For one piston, mind you. So, we got the parts. We can start assembling this engine now, which is extremely exciting. Okay? So, what I'm going to do first is continue to clean up the base of this engine, and then I will try to, without breaking, install some piston rings and a piston and a cylinder. And I will show you guys how to do that. Because as you see down here, I already mounted one piston. So I will walk you through on how to do it and do it the correct way. So let's dive in and get to it. So guys, quick break in the action. I would like to give one of my subscribers and fans a huge shout out. His name is Mike. You know who you are. I know you'll be watching. He saw my videos and he was local and he reached out and he had a ton of parts for the CB and he donated them to me. So a huge shout out to Mike. Thank you very much. He was also a plethora of knowledge and helped me out quite a bit. He donated this rear fender, some clutch parts, a whole whack of parts that will be going to very good use to help put this bike back on the road. So a huge shout out to Mike. Again, thank you very much, man. You helped me out a lot. So I'm going to start by removing some of this old gasket material. I did already start doing that, but there's still a little bit left over. Now, this seal, I might be wrong, shouldn't be as crucial as the actual head gasket itself, because if you look at the cylinder, it goes further down into the actual block than where the gasket surfaces are. So don't get me wrong, it still needs to be cleaned, but probably not eat off perfect, okay? So I'll get this cleaned up a little bit more and we will see about mounting some rings onto a piston, okay? So all I'm going to do for that is use this knife and potentially wire wheel on the end of my brush. So guys, that is probably the best I can get this without getting absolutely too crazy with it and needing one of my other tools with my compressor, which works, just not on the outlets I have to plug it into right now. It's an ongoing battle. So I use my wire wheel on this. You will want to be a little careful using a wire wheel on this. Preferably you'd want to use, I can't think of the name for them, but they're like rubber wheels. They're good on air grinders, your little angle grinder. I don't know if I have one here. These are meant for polishing metal and stuff like that to this sort of degree, but you need a higher speed, like I said, air grinder that attaches to your compressor. and that will clean this up very well. And it is non-abrasive, so it won't leave scratches, marks, it won't tear down and actually deface the surface and leave it unsquare and unlevel. This would be a much better tool for this purpose, well, for this application. But like I said, unfortunately, I can't use my compressor right now, and it's been an ongoing battle, but this would be a much better use, much better tool for this application than a wire wheel. But in a pinch, a wire wheel and a knife would do great. And do not use a file, because that will definitely damage the surface. You'll end up taking off too much material, and it just, you'd ruin it. So you just want to be careful. You might be able to get away with some very, very fine sandpaper, or even maybe some steel wool. That might work, but for what I'm doing, and this spot right here, like I said, I do not believe it is as crucial as the actual head gasket is. That surface you would want spotless. This will do just fine. So now, oh, one more thing I want to mention. So I'm going to bring this up because I've been there and I have done this, especially with swapping engine parts onto another engine. Okay. Before you go mounting your engine parts, your cylinder head, especially if they're off another engine, make sure, this is crucial, make sure your dowels are in the right locations and in the engine. You do not want to start and slap your cylinder on and your cylinder head and everything else, and then find out you have a dowel laying on the ground, or you're going to put in that cylinder head and you find out that that cylinder head you got off another engine has a dowel in the opposite spot on where one is, and now it won't mount. So that is very crucial. Make sure your dowels are in the correct spot. I already went through it and made sure they were all in the right spot where they need to be, so I know that is okay. So all you'd have to do is grab the next part that's got to go on, which is the cylinder itself. Make sure that it's going on that way, and see that you have both dowels out if you have both dowels down below. And then you know you'll be ready to go once you get your piston in and your gasket on. You can put this on. So that is very important. And then you can do that with the cylinder head as well. Check, see, hey, where my dowel's going to be? Does it have dowels? Check, see, make sure, and you'll be good to go. That is very important. Okay, guys, so I moved out here for better light, and so I can see better and a little more room, because now we are going to be mounting the rings onto this piston. Now, when I ordered these rings, I was told these were factory standard size rings, and I am under the belief that that cylinder has not been bored out, and it doesn't look like it has. So these pistons should be factory size. This all should fit. I did try these pistons in that cylinder, and the pistons do fit, so therefore they should be factory size. So these rings should fit. If they don't, well, I'm going to be rather angry. So before you go putting these rings on, grab your manual if you have one. If not, do some online research and make sure that you're doing it right, because there are very minute differences between them that you could easily mistake and not notice and mess these up and then have engine problems. So what you want to do is grab your first ring, okay, run it along the piston, just where it's got to go. Just run it right along all the way around 365 degrees. Just like that. And make sure it doesn't catch on anything. So you know that there's nothing in there that the ring will get caught on and break or anything like that. So that's what you want to do first. Then comes the more stressful part. So this is the first ring to go on. It is the oil ring. As you can see, that's good enough there. You can see it's got spaces in it. Also means it's more fragile, easier to break. This is the oil ring. This goes on first. This is what you want to put on first. So you want to be very careful with your piston rings because you can break these super easily. You just want to line them up. And just slowly, easily, carefully work it into place. You don't want to go too hard on these because it will break. Which, I'll be honest with you, I still might do. But you just want to be very careful with it. You don't want to go too hard. I got a little screwdriver here. I'll try and use it to help. Work it along. And again, I am being extremely gentle with it. There you have it. One ring on. Now, this is where, like I said, you want to do your research first to make sure you're doing your rings correctly. So these rings might not look like there's a difference between them, except for maybe color if you can make it out on the camera. There is. And I'll show you. This is why I have the manual. So if you look right here, this is your oil ring, and these are the next two rings after. As you can see, they need to go on in a certain way. If not, you will have oil burning and all those other issues. So you have to be very careful with how you put on your rings. Now on some bikes, it might not matter. The top ring might be the same as the bottom ring. It might be a two-stroke where in most cases they are the same ring and it just doesn't matter. Or there might be, like in this case is a four-stroke, there's an oil ring and two other rings and they're the exact same and it does not matter. What you want to do is to make sure, is exactly what I did. So I took these out of the package and I noticed right away, again, I don't know if you can tell, but there is a color difference in them. And that is done by the manufacturer so you can see, hey, stop, there's something different with these rings. So that is how you can tell. And again, refer to your manual or do some online research, okay? There's a plethora of knowledge out there. It doesn't hurt to look things up if you don't know. So next, I will grab my next ring and pop it on. So here we go. We've got the next ring. I'm just going to pop it on like I did the last one, hopefully without breaking it. So again, I'm just going to be very careful. Now these rings, these two, your top two, are going to be very similar in size. So it can easily pop into that top slot there, exactly where you don't want it to. So just be mindful of that because it can sometimes be a pain popping out of that slot and putting it down lower. So try not to do what I might be about to do. There, I got it. And there you have the second ring on. Going to double check that it's going the right way. And it is. So we're good to go with the last ring. So here it is, the last ring. And I'm just going to pop it on. And again, you know, you check them. I did it with the last one, just didn't see it was off camera. But check them, make sure there's no debris, especially with, in this case, these are used pistons. So, but if you didn't check it and you're worried, don't worry. Spin it around the piston, just like so. And they'll tell you, hey, there's something wrong. Then just pop it off extremely carefully and fix the problem. So here we go with the last piston ring. I'm just going to pop it on. Again, very carefully. And there you have it. All the rings are on the piston and ready to go. Now, you might just think I'll slap this on that piston rod and she's ready to go. Wrong. You have to stagger these rings, okay? Some of you guys might know this, some of you guys might not. Now, what I mean by that is these rings all have openings, like so. So now what I mean by stagger is when you go to put this in and drop it in the cylinder, you don't want your rings lined up like that. Because when it's in the actual cylinder, these will compress, but they won't close perfectly. And that will allow oil to seep through. And then your engine will be burning oil. So what you want to do is you want to take your ring, spin it just like so. Take your other ring, spin it just like so. And your other ring and spin it just like so. So now, if you look, if you can see, they're all just off of each other. Just like so. And that is more what you want to do. Now, again, you can look in the manual and see what it actually calls for. Let's say you don't have a manual. That is usually your best bet. Just roughly about a 25-degree or full 180-degree turn from each other, depending on how many rings you have. If you have 2, you'll want to do an opening at the front, opening at the back. If you have 3, opening at the front, opening at the back, opening on the side. And that will normally be just fine. So now that we have this all set up, I'm going to take it back into the garage and we're going to mount this on the crank. Okay, so there's a couple things I like to do before I slap this piston on the piston rod. And that is get the clip ready. Now you won't be able to see it on camera, but there are clips on either side of this piston that keep your piston shaft, if you want to call it that, in place so it doesn't just push all the way out. See, I can't push that out now, but I can on that side. So what you want to do is I find it's much easier on these 2 cylinders to put your clip in where it's going to be facing into the piston. So then you're not trying to fight it backwards to put your clip in. So just pre-pop your clip in, and then when you have to put the actual clip in on this side, it's right there in your teeth. It's no problem. So I'm going to start by lifting this crank, this piston rod up on this side. Now there is a certain way that these pistons go. There is a forward and a backwards. you always go by the arrow. And this one does have an arrow on it. It's right here. It's very small. But the arrow is pointing this way. This is the forward of the piston. So this is the front. Now, usually, when I tear engines apart and I know that there is forward and a backwards on a cylinder, I like to do it like drum brakes. Which, if you know how to do drum brakes, then you know exactly what I'm talking about. For those of you that don't, I'll explain. Now, since it's a 2-cylinder, when I take it apart, if the pistons are savable, I like to leave one in it. So that then I know for a matter of fact which way the pistons were facing. That's always a great trick because you can leave, go away for however long, come back, and you'll see exactly how that piston has to go when it has to go back in every time. That's always a great trick that I like to do. Is I just like to leave one piston in on the one side and then I just go by side. Now, this engine was very badly seized and the pistons were very badly damaged, so I could not do that. So that is one reason why I popped this piston back in as quickly as I could so I wouldn't forget. Because you can, especially on these, you can easily miss that small tiny arrow on these pistons, and then when you go to fire this up, that piston will come all the way up, smack that valve, your engine's done. So that is always a nice trick that I like to keep in my front pocket when I'm doing engines, is make sure you leave one piston in going the proper way so you can't forget. So I'm going to go to slap this piston in now. We got things just jumping off the rocks here, guys. I don't know what's happening. Like usual, mayhem. Now, they can be a bit of a pain to get lined up because you cannot see very well to know when you have to shove that piston shaft in. Oh, there it goes. And it's in. Lined up, good to go. So now I'm going to shove my clip in, and then I'll show you what's next. Now, these clips sometimes can be really not fun to pop back in. They can be quite a pain. But with some patience and a screwdriver or a pick, you can normally get them back in. And it makes it even harder when it's on the engine. It's usually easier when it's off. That's why I like to do the difficult side that's facing away from me right now, when it's off the engine. There we go. All right, so I got the clip back in, and this piston ain't going nowhere now. So now, next step, I think, is very important before I put the cylinder on, is lubricating and making sure these rings are lined up so that it's good to go once you drop that cylinder in. So what I like to do is, I'll show you. So what I like to do is grab some engine oil, new engine oil I've had sitting around in the shop for an undesignated amount of time. Don't worry, it doesn't expire. Put some on my fingers, lube my fingers up real nice, and spread it on the rings. So I'll show you. Because the last thing you want is these rings going in that cylinder dry. You don't want that. Lubrication is key, guys. Lubrication is key. All right. So, you're wiping those down with a bit of oil. That should be good. I'm not going to move the oil far. I'll keep it right close by me. And I'm going to check the stagger on these rings because, you know, they're going to be messed up after fighting to try and get that on. So you just want to make sure that they are in the right spot, both pistons. And I know this one is probably wrong. So double check them. Always double check your work and make sure they're lined up right. Okay, we're good. Rings are lined up. They're looking pretty happy. Okay guys, so next, after you got your pistons all ready, your chain situated, and it's relatively happy, you want to go ahead, open your gasket set, dump it all over the floor, and spend 5 minutes picking it all up off camera. It's a fantastic time. I definitely recommend it. Then you want to get the correct gasket after you pick them all up and place it in its proper spot. Now this will be a little tricky because we got timing chain and all the other fun stuff in the way here, and we don't want to be bumping too many things and messing it all up. Okay, then once you get your piston on, or your gasket on, then the real struggle comes into play, because now you have the chain, your pistons, and your piston rings that are definitely all going to be in your way, and you're going to have to battle and try and fight it up through your cylinder. So you guys will watch me. Well, you won't hear me curse and swear, but you'll get to see me struggle for a good little while, and then I'll end up giving up, and this will continue on tomorrow. No, I'll get it on. I promise. But before you do that, go back to your engine oil that you've had sitting around for an unknown amount of months. Lubricate your hands again, your fingers. And give those cylinders a liberal coating of engine oil inside. You don't want those pistons going in these cylinders dry. Remember, lubrication is key. Or if you don't have any engine oil kicking around, grab some WD-40. That'll do just fine as well. So then you want to grab your cylinder. I already put my timing chain guide in, got that lined up and ready to go. Now for the battle of trying to get the timing chain up this cylinder. Okay, guys. So after a little bit of struggling and some extra set of hands from my assistant, I was able to get that cylinder in and lined up. Wasn't the easiest thing to do. Like I said, I almost need to grow an extra 2 more arms, but I got it in and it is lined up, and these pistons are back in the cylinder. Okay, guys, well, that about does it for this week. I'm gonna go make some food, have some cold snacks, take a break. I will see you next week where we wrap up the engine assembly, and then we'll start on hopefully carburetors and all the fun stuff like that. And then maybe we can see if we can get this thing to bark off or not. Who knows? Maybe, if we get that far. But until next week, this is BK Motors Mayhem out. Don't forget to like, subscribe, leave a comment below. See you next week, guys.